Welcome to Credentialing Chronicles, where we spill the doctor tea hotter than your morning coffee.
And give you the insider scoop in the wild world of credentialing, provider drama, and everything they don't teach you in med school.
I'm Shannon, and she's Nylene, two credentialing pros with front row seats to all the chaos.
From fraud scandals to burnout breakdowns and why your favorite surgeon might actually be banned from 5 hospitals.
We got the gossip and the practical advice to keep you out of trouble and ahead of the game.
So grab your coffee, your compliance checklist, and maybe a lawyer, and let's get into it.
Welcome back to another bold, unapologetic episode of Credentialing Chronicles. I'm Shannon Reyes-Aguayo, and with me is my powerhouse of a co-host, Nylene Flores. Today's story is one of the most disturbing scandals in healthcare history, the case of a New York City doctor, and the series of events that let these shocking things happen.
All right, but let's get our disclaimer out of the way early today so we can actually get to this story. It's a big one. And, although this doctor is currently in prison, it's good to talk about past cases to ensure patients know what to look for if things don't look right. This doctor was seen as a prestigious, well-respected, and shall we say, OBGYN in Manhattan.
Of course, I can't wait. As a disclaimer, the cases we will be sharing with you are all available through public court documents. We promise we are not sharing any privileged or private information, and we have never personally credentialed these practitioners. We will not release the names of the practitioner, but honey, we will give you all the juicy details. I know you got some juicy details today, Nylene, right?
Oh, yeah.
This episode of Credentialing Chronicles is sponsored by Advanced Quality Compliance, your white glove credentialing crew. We get it. One person doing the work of 5, audit season looming, files all over the place. AQC steps in with expert hands and calm minds, digitizing your chaos, handling the details, and keeping you audit ready 24/7. Think less stress, more success with a touch of luxury. No stress, no mess, just AQC white glove service. Visit aqccvo.com to get started.
So, this one is heavy. I know our last few episodes have also been, heavy. But this New York male doctor was a respected gynecologist at Columbia University and New York Presbyterian Hospital. Huge institution.
Huge, yes.
Right? So on paper, he looked pristine and clean, but behind closed doors, girl, he spent decades sexually abusing his female patients. Yes. Hundreds of women, including minors and pregnant women. Can you believe that?
Nylene. Oh my God. So this is going to be a heavy story today.
So he started his career in 1993. By the early 2000s, complaints about inappropriate behavior were rolling in. Patients told Columbia that he was crossing boundaries during exams. But do you know what they did internally? They were just hush, hush. They didn't put the reviews anywhere. They didn't want to, make too much fuss, because, this doctor was, well known, probably had a very large patient base. And so complaints weren't being documented properly. They weren't escalated to medical staff leadership or peer review committees. And girl, this doctor was delivering babies. And years later, assaulted those same girls as teenagers when they...
Nylene!
Yes, for their first gynecological appointments. Tell me that is not disturbing.
Oh my God, disturbing is not even the word.
Yeah, so one publicized case involved him assaulting a 16-year-old that he had delivered when she was born.
Oh my goodness. I don't even know what to say. He assaulted a teenager that he literally helped deliver. Is that what you're saying? There's always so much to uncover every time we look at these cases, Nylene. It paints an incredibly twisted, like, predatorial pattern. I mean, what are you thinking, Nylene? Was there an investigation ever?
No, it was brushed aside. There was no formal disciplinary action. There was no suspension, no monitoring in progress, no report to the National Practitioner Data Bank that we love to talk about. He literally kept practicing like nothing happened year after year, recredentialed, reappointed, whatever, on the insurance panel. Is like seeing patients. It doesn't even end there, girl. Another incident, Shannon, you will not believe. Do you remember this guy named Andrew Yang? He was a formal presidential candidate. Well, guess what? His wife is the one who went public about being assaulted by this guy while she was pregnant in 2012. She described how he asked deeply inappropriate sexual questions, created a false sense of safety, and then assaulted her during what should have been a routine exam. Like he was touching what he shouldn't be touching in a way that he shouldn't be touching it. You know, like we all know how an exam is supposed to go, right? We have to go, be uncomfortable, but there's certain areas that don't need to be touched. And actually, what I would love to find out is I've worked for a lot of male physicians, and as a practice and out of respect to their spouses, usually male physicians that have to perform any type of exam on a female will have another female, an assistant, a medical assistant in that room, and they do that as a precaution, right? And so that these situations don't happen. So what was this guy doing, right? Like how disrespectful, how horrible.
And how crazy is it that it took a former presidential candidate's wife to get it all uncovered? I mean, so she went there for OB care is what you're saying, right, Nylene? And she left there with trauma. I mean, I'm glad her story brought national headlines and highlighted the systematic cover-up because this is just outrageous. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Yes, absolutely outrageous. And in 2012, he voluntarily resigns from Colombia. Voluntarily.
I can't.
So again, yes, so no action is reported, again, to the licensing board. So no alerts to the hospitals, no paper trail.
Yeah, I mean, this is unbelievable. A voluntary resignation, which we are seeing as part of the pattern, right? These things are happening, and then the voluntary resignation happens. No suspension, like you said. No formal disciplinary document. What else did you say? No report to NPDB, our favorite data bank that collects this type of information. I mean, it sounds to me like a credentialing nightmare, right? He basically just disappeared from the system, right?
Right, exactly. And so that's where the institutional failure is absolutely glaring. Even after his first arrest in 2012, Colombia let him quietly return seeing patients for weeks. Like they had come into his office and arrested him. And then they were just like, oh, well, we really don't know, innocent until proven guilty, let's see. And so these poor people were still showing up at the office for appointments. Meanwhile, they're getting SA'd like crazy.
Yeah. And where's the medical board? Where's the New York Medical Board? When does that pause happen? Exactly. We keep talking. Where is the pause? I mean, they let him return. I mean, and you think he disclosed? Do you think he went into the credentialing office, Nylene, and said, something happened. I need to disclose it to you all. I mean, ultimately, you want to be a fly on the wall in those meetings, right?
Oh my goodness, for sure. I mean, medical staff meetings are usually pretty juicy, but anyway.
Yeah.
Want to hear how it got worse? Could it even possibly be worse?
It didn't get worse. Did it get worse, Nylene? Don't tell me. Can our listeners handle worse?
Okay, so fast forward. So we had talked about 2012, right? So fast forward 4 years to 2016. He finally actually pleads guilty in court. So he pleads guilty for forced touching and sexual abuse. You think he went to jail?
Of course, right? Of course.
Nope. As part of his plea deal, he's allowed to voluntarily surrender his New York medical license. no disciplinary hearing, no prison time, no permanent record that would have technically stopped him anywhere else.
How often do we see that, Nylene? Compliance teams, credentialing pros, are you listening? Voluntary surrendering without an official revocation means that there's no red flags in the system at all for these providers. That should never satisfy us. If we see that, you need to dig. It will protect your hospital and it will protect your patients. I mean, do you agree, Nylene? What do you think?
Completely. I completely agree. And here's the kicker. Neither Columbia or the New York State Office of Professional Medical Conduct reported him properly, again, to that NPDB. So his name is technically clean in the system as far as like doctor world, right? Like no national.
Yeah.
No warnings for other facilities, And then finally, fast forward to 2020, right? We've got the Me Too movement. We've got women finally having the courage to step up and talk about things. Finally, in 2020, after media attention and survivor outrage, federal prosecutors then charged him with transporting women across state lines for illegal sexual conduct. So I don't even know. I mean, this is just crazy. It just keeps getting worse and worse. I don't know what he was doing with his patients. But apparently it just kept getting worse and worse.
And so really the feds had to step in because the medical board never stepped in. There was never police called about any of this stuff. And so what does the narrative go? It's to protect the practitioner that is prying on the patients. And why doesn't it think, let's protect the patients from the predatory practitioner? I don't know how we get that narrative to change. I mean, what are you thinking?
Right. False perception.
Yeah, I don't know.
False perception that doctors are automatically maybe I didn't feel that, or maybe that's just the way it's supposed to be, because the reality is, as patients, we didn't go to medical school, so sometimes if a doctor does something, you fully trust them. And we don't want to generalize, because we have amazing physicians, and shout out to all of you out there.
Amazing. Yes.
These bad actors have to give you guys, because we couldn't live without our OBs. We couldn't live with our, beautiful and wonderful gynecologists that help us. But doctors like this, it's just horrible that they're protected under the idea of this license, whereas a person on the street or any other profession would never be allowed of this type of behavior continuing. So in 2023, again, so let's talk about, we're talking 11 years later after the first arrest.
Yeah.
It's
still going on. Yeah.
Exactly. He was then finally sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. But again, it took decades, hundreds of victims, children, minors, women, and Columbia, like, come on. And along with New York Presbyterian, guess what? They got fined over $236 million in settlements to survivors.
And they deserved it. Yeah. And it still doesn't make up for what they went through.
And I'm sorry, and if there was an MA that was working with this guy and said something and got fired, like, oh my goodness, could you imagine, like, if that really happened? We don't know. But I mean, you mean to tell me this guy was doing this for decades, and nobody said anything? Come on. Like, the guy's a creepo. Like, don't tell me you're working with him and you don't know.
Well, yeah, they said that there were complaints, but that the complaints were not being registered as a complaint to a peer review committee, or it wasn't going to the credentialing department. So whoever, PSA to our patients, if you have a complaint, call the medical staff department and make your complaint. You don't have to make it to the office manager. You can literally, in a bigger institution, just call the medical staff office, right, Nylene?
Especially a large institution like this, for sure.
Again, I just want to say, us highlighting these type of doctors, these type of incidences, is helping medical staff professionals feel more confident to say things when they feel that the practitioner coming on board might have something. And it's also making sure that we are keeping the medical profession pristine, because it just can't be an automatically everybody's a great apple. We have to go in there and make sure that we're looking for the people that could hurt the pristineness of this organization, correct?
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, I guess we should pause really quick, for our credentialing audience that we have. What would have changed this story, Nylene? What do you think? Like, what could have done? What could we have done different?
So first of all, see something, say something, hear something, say something. Yeah. If you hear and say something, document it. Write it down.
What about your camera?
Document, scan, save it in 5 folders. Do what you can so it is documented, right? Peer review actions. Make sure peer review is being done. There's a reason why peer review exists. There's a reason why it has to be done, and it's monitored by every accrediting agency out there. And then suspend him. Like, just suspend him pending an investigation.
Pause.
Take action.
Pause.
Exactly. Take a pause action. These are serious allegations. By the 10th one, you mean to tell me you're not going to put a pause? I mean, come on. And then NPDB, learn your reporting requirements for this data bank. Guys,
we need to get the NPDB on here. Yes.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
So the NPDB website is very clear. They work very diligently in providing resources and telling you how to do this. Make sure you're reporting. You can report any healthcare worker, anybody. I don't care who it is. The nurse.
They do not need an NPI.
That is correct. Anybody working in healthcare, so we can keep track of this. And then no voluntary resignations. Like,
big one.
Why people are resigning. Like, if you move to another state, I need to know, did you move in good standing? Like, why are you actually resigning?
Did you just want to be close to the ocean, or did you hurt some people back there? Yeah, I need to know why.
Exactly. Because doctors don't just like randomly get up and move their entire life, right?
Yeah.
And MSPs, you are the firewall. Administrators, managers, you are the firewall.
You are. Please know that.
Yes. And credentialing isn't paperwork. It's patient protection. This is about the patients. I don't care how long they've been practicing. They are humans. And when you talk to them just as humans, sorry, doctor, I know this paperwork is annoying. I know you can't stand it, but it serves a function. There's a reason. You've gotten 10 complaints. If you had an employee with that many disciplinary complaints, wouldn't you?
What are you going to do? It's literal patient protection, like you're saying, Nylene. It's literal patient protection. The compliance officers, the medical staff professionals, leadership. How many more scandals do we need before we stop allowing this kind of silence? I mean, that's my question, right, Nylene?
Yeah, if something is going on, please investigate it. And if you don't want to make a big deal, like you said, put a pause button. We need to just take a minute, do some investigation. And then let me tell you, I know that we haven't really talked about ourselves in any of this, but I am actually a certified professional compliance officer. I have to take a very important test, and you have to study, and you have to meet a lot of criteria in order to take this exam.
Yes.
And you have to learn all of these rules and all of these laws. If you need help and you need assistance, contact a certified compliance officer and to say, listen, get some outside help, right?
And exactly. And I mean, biggest thing is see something, say something, right? Before we close, I guess let's go ahead and leave our listeners with something practical, right? Nylene, literally, you're the certified compliance expert. Tell the patients, this is, from Credentialing Chronicles, what can they do if they're in this situation?
Well, patients, first of all, do your research. Obviously, in a case like this, you won't find anything, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
So, at the very least, if you're going to choose your doctor, step number 1 is let's find that license. Make sure you don't have any actions on there, because you really deserve to know who's treating you. And then set the Google alert for your practitioners. And if they end up in the news, Google is actually going to alert you. And
great thing.
Most importantly, if something feels wrong, it's because it is. Trust your gut. If you don't feel that exam was appropriate, or you got touched in a way that did not feel right, stop and say something, document it, freaking put out your phone. Girls, you being examined, I don't care. You take your phone, you keep it next to you, because the minute something feels uncomfortable, do not ever be in a room with a male physician. Females, do not be in a room with a male physician on your own. This will protect you and will protect them. I'm sure their wives will sincerely appreciate it. Those are just 3 tidbits we can learn from here.
That's great advice, Nylene. I have to tell you, that's just great advice. And when patients find themselves in that situation, I just want them to hear your words. Okay, hear your words. Hear Nylene's words. God forbid, but if you ever find yourself. For our medical staff professionals and compliance pros, you are the first line of defense, okay? We're going to always advocate for people to come directly to you. You have a problem, you have a complaint, you are a provider, you had a crazy night and something happened, go to your medical staff professional. Their job is to walk you through the process of disclosing to the medical staff committee. So don't ignore your red flags, medical staff professionals. Make sure you're documenting complaints that come in. Escalate issues. Get your information, put it together, and escalate it. Make sure you're filing your reports with NPDB or the board, just like Nylene said. That is number one. And I think, we need to have a whole episode about that, to be honest with you. Look for that in the future. Also, look into the areas of voluntary resignation if you're seeing that on applications. Call the medical staff over there. Don't just trust their electronic system. Talk to them. Hey, girl. Hey, MSP to MSP. Why? How? What? Tell me the tea, girl. I mean, right, Nylene? I would call you up, Nylene, if I see that somebody was over there and they had something like that. Would you answer, Nylene?
Right. I mean, and obviously we have to be careful on how we answer it, but you can definitely get a feeling into what we can see, what not to see, what we can say and we can't say. And we know how to talk to each other to make sure that at the end of the day, we do what is right for our patient and we do what's right for that. And if you don't know, talk to your managers. Talk to your managers, talk to your directors and say, hey, I really don't feel comfortable sending a letter of good standing on this person. How can we do that? And sometimes, it's hard, but like you said, a one-on-one conversation, we can kind of try and say things. I don't know, maybe we need to talk to him. Maybe you want to ask him what happened. That'll kind of trigger you into like, okay, I need to call this doctor and have a heart-to-heart and say, what is going on? We need to find out kind of what happened.
And even when you present to the committee, you can say, I spoke one-on-one. They didn't disclose exactly, but, there was a little concern in the voice. We get those things as, humans in the non-verbal communication that we have with each other. What would you say to doctors, Nylene, if you're in this situation? What would you say to doctors?
So doctors, transparency, right? You have worked so hard for your license, for your reputation. Don't be a creepo, first of all. And second of all, if you're a male, bring a female into the room and it'll make your patients feel safer. And I don't care what specialty it is. If you cannot, leave the door open unless you're performing a different type of exam. But if you're talking to the patient, leave the door open. Make some kind of signal within your office to make sure. And female physicians, if you're going to in a room to examine a male, then, have someone else in the room with you. Either way, protect yourselves. You've got all kinds of physicians and we want to be able to be vulnerable with you because, we have to tell you the most uncomfortable things as patients. And so you do have us at our most vulnerable. And so that's all that we ask, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree exactly with you, Nylene. I feel like you're exactly right. Having, the person in there just protects everybody. And hey, I mean, if you're fired up after this episode like we are, do us a favor. Like, subscribe, leave us a review, share our post, share our credentialing. Everywhere, right, Nylene? I mean, what else do we say?
Yes, because, we're just getting started exposing all of these scandals, and we really need your help to spread the word.
They could catch us on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. We're on all of the directories. We just want you to stay sharp. We want you to stay safe. And we want you to always remember
that patient safety is everyone's responsibility and that credentialing isn't just paperwork. It's protection to all of our patients.
Whoo, that was a lot of tea. Who knew doctors had more drama than reality TV?
And if you think that was wild, just wait till next week. We've got more stories, more scandals, and more credentialing chaos coming your way.
Hit that follow button, and don't forget, just because they have an MD doesn't mean they have a clean record.
See you next time on Credentialing Chronicles. Stay credentialed, not canceled.